If you are visiting Rome, I recommend you explore Trastevere, a vibrant neighborhood with cobblestone streets, charming piazzas, interesting shops, and plenty of bars and restaurants. Trastevere is named for its geographical location across the Tiber River from its historic city center. To get a good idea of the area, visit the following 13 places. 1. Piazza di Santa Maria in Trastevere. The square is at the heart of Trastevere. In the center of the square is a fountain, which is believed to be the oldest fountain in Rome, dating back to the 8th century. The old fountain was reconstructed by Donato Bramante in 1500 and by Bernini and Carlo Fontana in the 17th century. In the corner of the square stands the Basilica Santa Maria in Trastevere. The basilica is one of the oldest churches in Rome, originating in the 3rd century, when a house church was built on the site. Today, the facade of Santa Maria in Trastevere is characterized by a Romanesque bell tower from the 12th century and a mosaic of the Madonna and Child by Pietro Cavallini, also from the 12th century. Carlo Fontana added a Baroque portico with 5 arches to the medieval facade in 1702, supporting a balustrade with 4 freestanding statues of popes. The inside of the basilica is divided into 3 naves by 22 granite columns that most likely came from the ruins of the Baths of Caracalla. The medieval mosaic of the apse depicts Christ and the Virgin Mary enthroned and surrounded by saints. Just below Pietro Cavallini added a series of mosaics depicting the life of the Virgin. The magnificent wooden ceiling from 1617 sparkles with gold and vibrant colors and depicts in the octagonal cove in the middle the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin. The floor of the basilica was in 1860 repaved faithful to the original geometric design, also known as cosmatesque. 2. Piazza di San Cosimato. Piazza di San Cosimato is a triangle-shaped piazza with bars, restaurants, and shops surrounding it. Every morning from Monday till Saturday, there is a food market in the square, where vendors sell seasonal fruits and vegetables in the center of the square, while fresh fish, meat, and cheese are sold in permanent covered stalls at the edge of the square. There is a small, fenced-in playground for children at the tip of the square. Every year, from the beginning of June till the middle of July, the square is transformed into an open-air cinema, where after sunset a film is projected on a large screen. 3. Picturesque streets. Trastevere is a charming labyrinth of narrow cobblestone streets with colorful, ivy-covered buildings. One of the best things to do in Trastevere is strolling through these photogenic streets, admiring the ancient structures and monuments along the way, and experiencing the atmosphere of the neighborhood, which is one of the most authentic in Rome. Let your curiosity guide you and wander around. 4. Chiesa di San Francesco a Ripa. The church is dedicated to Francis of Assisi, who stayed at the adjacent hostel when he visited Rome. The facade is basic Baroque and was built in 1682. The interior is typical Franciscan, without luxury or excess. The church has 3 naves. The left and right nave each have 3 chapels. In the left transept in the last chapel, the Paluzzi Albertoni Chapel, is one of Bernini's masterpieces, The Ecstasy of the Blessed Ludovica Albertoni. Ludovica was a Roman noblewoman who dedicated her life to the poor of the Trastevere neighborhood. The sculpture is set above a red marble sarcophagus, where Ludovica was buried in 1533. The sculpture reminds us of Bernini's more famous statue of Saint Therese in the Santa Maria della Vittoria church. 5. Basilica di Santa Cecilia in Trastevere. The Basilica of Santa Cecilia, patroness of music and musicians, stands on top of the House of Cecilia, a Roman noblewoman who was martyred in the 3rd century for converting her husband and his brother to Christianity. The first church was built in the 3rd century and rebuilt as a basilica in the 9th century. The bell tower and portico were added in the 12th century. The inscription in praise of the titular cardinal, Francesco Acquaviva, was added in the 18th century. Inside the church, you notice the beautiful 9th century mosaic in the apse depicting Christ with 3 saints on the left, and 3 saints including Cecilia and her husband on the right. The 13th century baldacchino in black and white marble made by Arnolfo di Cambio, the 16th century statue of Santa Cecilia under the altar made by Stefano Maderno, who represented the saint's body exactly as it was found in a sarcophagi in the church in 1599 during restoration work. The 18th century vault with a fresco of the coronation of Santa Cecilia, and the 19th century pillars, which encased the older columns and helped to support the weight of the ceiling. In the basement of the church are the remains of old Roman houses, of which one is said to have belonged to Santa Cecilia, as well as a crypt decorated in cosmatesque style that holds the relics of Santa Cecilia and her husband. 6. Basilica di San Crisogono. The Basilica of San Crisogono is one of the oldest basilicas in Rome. The original basilica was built in the 4th century. In the 12th century, the church was abandoned, filled with earth, and a new church was built to the north of the original one, overlapping it only slightly. The basilica has a monumental Baroque facade with a tympanum, preceded by a large portico with 4 columns and a Romanesque bell tower. The interior of the basilica resembles the Basilica of Santa Maria in Trastevere, especially the spectacular wooden ceiling covered in gold and the cosmatesque floor pavement, both commissioned in the 17th century by Cardinal Scipione Borghese. From the sacristy, you can access the underground remains of the older basilica. Stairs lead to a semicircular apse, flanked by a sacristy and a baptistery. In the apse, you can still see a worn 8th century fresco representing 3 saints, including Chrysogonus. In the corridor between the room with the foundations of the recent basilica and the ancient basilica are well-preserved frescoes visible from the 10th and 11th century, depicting Saint Benedict and Pope Sylvester. In the room on the other side of the apse are sarcophagi, stones with inscriptions, and fragments of tomb slabs. Some of the original slab flooring is preserved, with an early 6th century grave slab of someone called Victor. 7th, Piazza Trilussa. Piazza Trilussa is located in front of Ponte Sisto. The square is named after the Roman poet Carlo Alberto Salustri, better known by his pen name Trilussa, which is an anagram of his surname. The statue of the poet, who was famous for his satirical poems about the bourgeoisie, stands on the right side of the square. The bronze statue is accompanied by a white marble slab with the verses of one of his most famous poems, In the Shadow. In the extension of the Sisto Bridge stands the beautiful fountain of Acqua Paola, commissioned in 1613 by Pope Paul V of the Borghese family to feed the Trastevere district. Designed as a massive arch with a central niche flanked by 2 columns supporting the top with the Borghese family coat of arms, with eagle and dragon. The fountain was initially located on the other side of the river, but was dismantled in 1870 for the construction of protective walls around the Tiber after a disastrous flood. It was reconstructed in 1898 in Piazza Trilussa on top of a 15-step flight. The charming square is a popular meeting place for locals and tourists who want to enjoy the street performers or get together to go to one of the many surrounding bars, restaurants, or clubs. 8. Villa Sciarra. Villa Sciarra is a lovely city park located on the slopes of the Janiculum. The park is named for the villa at its center, which was once the property of the Sciarra family. In 1902, Villa Sciarra was acquired by a wealthy American couple, George Wirtz and Henriette Tower. They restored the house and laid out the gardens with exotic flora, fountains, and statues. In 1932, Villa Sciarra was given to Mussolini by the widowed Henriette, on the condition that the gardens became a public park. Villa Sciarra is a great location for a picnic on one of the many benches in the park or on a blanket in the grass. The park also has a playground for children as well as a viewpoint with amazing sights of the city. 9th, Tempietto del Bramante. The Tempietto, or Little Temple, is a small architectural jewel designed by Donato Bramante and built in the early 16th century in the courtyard of San Pietro in Montorio, on the spot where St. Peter is said to have been crucified. The building, commissioned by the Spanish royal family, is a masterpiece of the Renaissance. It is almost more a sculpture than a building as it has little architectural use. The building is a single-chamber temple with a circular floor plan and is surrounded by 16 granite columns, crowned by a classical frieze and elegant balustrade. The building is finished with a concrete dome on top of a tambour, decorated with pilasters. The interior has high and deep niches along the walls, of which 4 house small statues. On the altar stands the statue of St. Peter. The floor is made in the Cosmatesque style. 10. Mausoleo Ossario Garibaldino. The mausoleum stands at the Colle del Pino. It was inaugurated in 1941 as a resting place for those who died in the battles, fought between 1849 and 1870 for Rome as capital city. The building consists of a 4-sided travertine portico with an altar carved from a block of red granite from North Italy. The central core of the monument is embellished with allegorical figures of ancient themes, including the she-wolf, the imperial eagle, shields, and swords. At the corners of the portico stand 4 travertine pedestals supporting bronze braziers that are lit on official occasions. The pedestals commemorate the most significant battles for the liberation of Rome. Below the portico is the shrine, closed by a bronze portal. Written on the walls are the names of more than 1,600 soldiers who died for Rome. On the back wall of the mausoleum is the sarcophagus with the remains of Goffredo Mameli, writer of the Italian anthem, who died at the age of 22 in 1849. 11th. Fontana dell'Acqua Paola. The Acqua Paola fountain is a monumental fountain on the Janiculum Hill. It was built in 1612 to mark the end of the Trajan aqueduct, which was restored by Pope Paul V of the Borghese family to supply the Trastevere district with water. The aqueduct and the fountain were named after him. The fountain was designed by Giovanni Fontana and Flaminio Ponzio as a massive fountain with 5 arches, with water flowing into a marble basin in each arch. At the top of the fountain are the papal tiara and keys, above the Borghese family coat of arms, flanked by angels. The inscription praises Pope Paul V for bringing water from Bracciano over 35 miles to Trastevere. In 1690, Carlo Fontana added a semicircular pool for the water which overflowed from the marble basins. Marble posts were added later to keep coachmen from watering their animals in the fountain. 12th. Belvedere del Gianicolo. The Janiculum was the site of the battle in 1849 between the forces of Garibaldi, defending the Roman Republic, and the French forces, trying to restore the power of the Pope over Rome. In 1883, the area was transformed into a public promenade. At the edge of the avenues stand 84 busts of prominent soldiers. The center of the square is dominated by an imposing statue of Giuseppe Garibaldi on horseback. The bronze statue is placed on a high marble pedestal, which is decorated with 4 bronze statue groups depicting major battles, and with allegorical figures on each side. The Janiculum Terrace offers some of the most scenic views of the historic center of Rome. You can see the Pantheon, the monument for Victor Emmanuel II, and the mountains of Lazio at the horizon. Every day at noon, 12 o'clock sharp, 3 soldiers fire a blank shot from a cannon, placed just below the terrace. The tradition was started by Pius IX in 1847 at Castel Sant'Angelo as a time signal for the surrounding bell towers to start ringing. In 1904, the tradition was moved to the Janiculum. 13th. Portese Market. More than a mile long, the Portese Market is the most famous and largest street market in Rome. It started as a small local market in the 19th century and grew in size and popularity over the years. Every Sunday morning from 7 a.m. till 2 p.m., the area starting at the old Porta Portese gate, going to Piazza Ippolito Nievo, and from there to Via Ettore Roli, is transformed into a true paradise for shopping. You can find almost everything at the market. There are hundreds of stalls selling antiques, paintings, books, records, and CDs, clothing, shoes, accessories, jewels, and so much more. Romans and tourists enjoy looking at the stalls in search of a good bargain, negotiating the price with the vendors, and interacting with fellow shoppers. I hope you enjoyed these 13 interesting places and will visit them during your next trip to Rome. Please give us a like and have a look at our other videos on Rome.